Anybody who thinks that the process of reaching out to our neighbors and asking them to vote and exercise their democratic rights, anybody who thinks that can't be joyful ought to be in this room to see how we're lifting one another up. This is what politics ought to look like. So here we are, 3 more days before Election Day, depending how you count. It's down to the hours. An election that could decide the whole future of our country, and an election that could be decided by just a few votes per precinct right here in the state of Michigan. No pressure, but we got to get this done. Are you ready to make sure Michigan delivers for Kamala Harris and Tim Walz? My name's Pete Buttigieg, and I stand before you as a father and a husband and a veteran and an American, and yes, a proud Michigander. Now, I didn't move here because it happened to be the center of the political universe. I moved here because I fell for this certain son of Traverse City, a teacher that you just met, Chas. Technically Grand, but we're saying Greater Traverse City. He changed my life, and we are so proud to be raising our son and our daughter in this great state, in this amazing community, and bringing them to their very first political rally, which they seem to be enjoying. This is a community that has been so great to us. It is a community of honest and hardworking people. People like my mom, who made the improbable decision that people not from around here don't get, of moving north in order to retire. Who's here? People like Chasten's family, his mom and dad. And neighbors who remind us every day of why it's so important to have leaders with the right values and the right priorities. I'll tell you, the conversations that we've been having, whether it was on 6th Street trick-or-treating. Everyone knows the candy they're giving out on 6th Street, right? Or whether it's in line at Moomers or any other places around here we spend time. Our neighbors talk about the issues that are at stake in this election, whether they're talking about the election or not. They talk about housing, which reminds us why it's so important to elect somebody who has an actual plan, not a concept of a plan, but an actual plan for building more affordable housing. Our friends and our neighbors talk about the cost of raising kids and how much we care about their future, which is why we need a leader who's actually prepared to make child care more affordable, not Donald Trump's Project 2025 plan to abolish the Department of Education and use the money for tax cuts for billionaires. Our neighbors care about the basics, like safety, which is why they haven't forgotten that violent crime in this country went down after Donald Trump got beat and left office. And that a good way to send the right message about the rule of law in this country is to say no to the convicted criminal and yes to the prosecutor who put transnational criminals behind bars. And our neighbors are freedom-loving people, which is why they're not impressed with Donald Trump saying any American citizen who disagrees with him is the enemy. Freedom-loving people know that in a free country you get to say what you believe and stand up to bullies when that's what's required. And yes, in a freedom-loving country you get to be who you are and love who you love without somebody telling you otherwise. And our neighbors in northern Michigan know that in a freedom-loving country, a woman makes her own health care decisions, not some politician telling her what to do. In other words, every day our neighbors remind us why the next president ought to be Kamala Harris. And if you want a reminder that she's somebody who has her priorities in the right place, look no further than her running mate, my friend, somebody who, just like us, makes his home along the 45th parallel, Governor Tim Walz of Minnesota. Tim is the real deal. In a couple of minutes, I'll get out of the way so that you can see that for yourself. But I just want to share the thing I most appreciate about him, which is that his whole career he has lived out the most important thing anyone in public service ought to understand, which is that it's not about you. Think about what he's done with his career. A teacher, a non-commissioned officer in the National Guard for 24 years, a coach. What do all those jobs have in common? The measure of a great teacher is the performance of your students. The measure of a great sergeant is the readiness of your soldiers. The measure of a great coach is the success of your players. You live and work in order to make other people better off, and that's what he's been doing as governor, and that's what he's going to do as our next vice president of the United States. Folks, as you get out there knocking on doors, as you talk to that person, and every one of us has them, you can picture them right now in your family who we still haven't quite got through to. Maybe we haven't convinced them on how to vote. Maybe, just as important, we haven't quite convinced them on whether to vote. But think about why you're here. I know why I'm here. It's our family, right over there. It's the first thing I see when I wake up in the morning, be it at 6 in the morning if we're lucky, or 3 in the morning when one of them comes running into the room reporting their most recent nightmare. For our daughter, it's dinosaurs. Dinosaur got me, she'll say. And as a dad, I get to put my arm around her and say, no dinosaur is going to get you. Right? I'm batting 1,000 on that, right, P? No dinosaur is going to get you. And it feels really good as a parent to make a promise to your child that you're 100% sure is going to come true. With zero effort on your part, I might add. But of course, we're all here because of the promises we want to make to our kids that aren't going to happen with no effort. I want to be just as sure when I promise her that she's going to have more and not fewer rights than her grandmother did. I want to be just as sure when I promise them that they're going to inherit a climate and an environment that is as apt to sustain their well-being as the one that was handed to us. By the time they're old enough to get to middle school, that the only thing they got to worry about is middle school stuff like whose table to sit at and how to get through their classes and not whether they're going to be physically safe. And most of all, that by the time they're old enough to ask what I was doing, what Chasten was doing, what we were doing back in the 2020s, when it was all on the line, that we did what it took to secure their future by electing Kamala Harris and Tim Walz, the next president and vice president of the United States. Thank you, Michigan. Thank you for coming out. Let's use every hour we have and get this done. Thank you.